Bry. It's a Monday morning, and we are recording an episode of Dualistic Unity Raw, but it is a special episode, and I know nobody's going to hear this except for after this event happens, but today, for anybody who tunes in before this happens, we are doing the very first Dualistic Unity Marathon episode. The point of this is to basically stay online, shoot the shit, go through as many things as possible, answer some questions, possibly eat a meal on screen. Who knows? The point is, we're going to be on screen for as long as we can be, with the intention of raising enough money for a retreat ticket for somebody within the community who can't currently afford to go. We haven't said who that person is. We haven't even decided who that person is because there are a handful of people that we have in mind. But we figured what better way to put our time and energy and attention into getting that person into the retreat than to talk about it all fucking day. Not just talk about the retreat, but talk about life, talk about the point, talk about what this is, and to just hang the fuck out. So today, as of 3 p.m. Eastern time, we are going to be running a marathon episode. You can find us on Twitch, you can find us on YouTube, you can find us on Instagram, and you can donate via GoFundMe. We now have a GoFundMe page. So if you would like to help someone get to a retreat, go to that link on the screen right now. Donate anything. Could be $2, could be $5, could be $10, could be $100. Everything helps. And our goal today is to try and raise as much as we can, hopefully the entire ticket price. That is certainly the goal, but we may run out of time, as tomorrow we have the call-in show. Call in with a Q for anybody wondering. It's the call-in show, but I'm going to just call it call-in show because it sounds easier. Anyway, point is that we're going to run into the call-in show tomorrow. So if we're still marathoning by tomorrow, the marathon will take a brief hiatus while we go into the call-in show, and then we have Patreon after that. So we're going to raise as much as we can, but you can help right now by just going to GoFundMe, typing in Dualistic Unity, and the first result in helping someone get to a California mini retreat is right there on the search. Or you can just go to the QR code that's on the screen, and that will take you to the link as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's even funny for me saying like for a good cause. Like it's for a thing, and it's cool that we can do this. And like, why the fuck not? It's not even like we're not doing it like for anything. It's like we're doing something, and it's exciting, and I'm excited, and I think it's gonna be yeah, I'm super excited for it. I've never done anything like that at all, and now I'm like realizing, oh yeah, we may be going through the night through tomorrow, and I have this I have this fucking interview thing I got reached out to. It's called Street Hearts. It's this like I'm trying not to have any thoughts about it. It's like a date that gets with an interviewee that's on camera. So I'm like, especially with how I've been feeling recently, like admittedly, I'm like, I don't give a fuck how it goes at all, but like I'm at the same time nervous, and it's like this weird dichotomy for me right now. But I'm excited, and it would be hilarious if I just we take a break, or I hop off the live stream for a bit, go do that thing. They're filming it. I think they said they're going to try and film it on a subway, but it's only like 20 minutes. So hop into that and then hop back on the live stream. And that'd be pretty funny. But yeah, it'll be a different vibe, I feel like, because with any of our calls, like I'm never really looking at the clock or wondering, like thinking about the time constraint at all. But with this, it'll just be like, you know, anything's on the table. We'll almost, you have to, in something like that, be willing to just run with anything. So I'm excited because I think, just as I've expressed like sometimes feeling like I have nothing to say, and like there are always things to say or talk about. It's just that I'm filtering myself. I'm like filtering what I think can and can't be said. And it's like, for who, for what purpose? And it's getting clearer and clearer to me. Like, if there's not a point and there's not a purpose to anything, there's not a point or purpose to a conversation or interaction. And I'm realizing so many of my interactions were like for a made up purpose or point, like for a mutually beneficial you know, thing agreed upon to, both feel better about something. And it's like almost kind of jarring in a sense. It's different to interact without a point, like to interact without a reason or a purpose, but it really does open up life in so many ways too. Like I find that there's like remnants of judgment, like habitual remnants of judgment in a lot of ways, but not like overarching judgment. And like I'll jump from situation to situation, and like there isn't so much thought of like what has happened or what's gonna happen. It's like involvement, but it's like full involvement in whatever's going on without so much of an idea of like outside of what's actually happening. And it's like there's it's more feels more uncertain, and there's still and like there's a sensitivity, and it'll still be jarring sometimes even when I'm talking like or interacting with someone and someone else is talking, and I'll get like this wall of just like I stop being able to hear them almost for a bit. And like that's we were talking about that on Patreon a little bit yesterday. But like, yeah, that's an interesting experience too. But yeah, marathon. Fuck yeah. Excited for it.
Yeah, it's a fun place to be when you really start to just take it in, just because all that's really changed is you've just stopped adding things to the experience. Right? Like that's really what you're seeing. And when you're in a conversation, as soon as you've started adding something to the experience, because you're no longer hearing the person. Right? Which is a real pain in the ass, but that's what it is. The experience is happening, and then you're superimposing something over top of it. And we've done that for so very long without knowing it, that to suddenly come to recognition that, oh shit, I'm doing that, opens up doorways. But then the less you do it, the more you start to recognize how comforting it was to do. Like how much it really just blanketed you from reality. It really distills everything down to like a point that you feel you can deal with. Like that, because reality is huge and limitless, and there are so many considerations all the time. Like if you were worried about having control, you're eventually just going to be in a constant state of anxiety, just because there is so much happening. And so what we do is we tune that shit out. We distill it down. We form a worldview that we're comfortable with, something that makes it easily explainable enough and still gives us the ability to assume that we have control. And so we tune everything else out, because as soon as we open ourselves up to it, it falls apart again. It's like we were saying about assumptions. Assumptions only work until you question them. That's why people react when you question their assumptions. It's because they don't want to question them. It's not because they can't. It's because to do so would make them uncomfortable, would suddenly open them up to all of those considerations that they don't want to think about. Somebody was, two people actually were having a TikTok conversation in the comment section of one of my videos about existence. And I had said something like, there is no such thing as non-existence. And somebody else who believes that Jesus exists outside of time, but everything else has a beginning. And that was what he just stuck to. And somebody else was arguing with it, and they went back and forth about the nature of light. And then the guy's like, yeah, but if the light is blocked by a tree, then there is no light. And the other guy's like, of course there's fucking light. What are you talking about? And so the conversation just kept going back and forth. And finally, one of them's like, I just don't understand how you can't see that existence didn't have a beginning, that existence always is. And I'm like, it's not can't, won't. It's won't. It's not can't see, it's won't see. Because for that person to see that, they would have to question, well, Jesus. They would have to question the Bible. They would have to question their beliefs. They would have to question their perception of themselves. And it would open them up to the entire problem that made them scream and run towards religion, that uncertainty. And this is why I say cognitive dissonance is a force. It's a force in the same way that hunger is a force. When you're hungry, You look for a way to get out of that discomfort. Well, when you're threatened, when your assumptions, the things that make you comfortable are threatened, your brain tries to find a way out of that discomfort. And the easiest way is to make another assumption, usually about the person who's pissing you off.
Oh my gosh, it's like the easiest thing to, and like I say easiest, and like that was just what what came to mind first, but like it's basic, and it just cuts you off so much from things, obviously, like, but it isn't, yeah, it's not that people can't see certain things. It's like they just don't want to, and we'll create a world for ourselves that confines us and cuts us off, and just, oh my god, like the amount of ways that it, and then it's just all about staying comfortable, remaining comfortable as you go, and like not digging into anything, not checking out anything, not wondering about anything, like talking to the same types of people, interacting with the same types of people, never taking in new information. So it's not really even there. And again, it's hard. It's, if someone doesn't want to look at how much they're keeping at bay, at how much they're choosing not to look at out of a fear of discomfort, you can't really convince them to look at all. Like, because their reasoning, if you try and explain to them this, that there's, more whatever, like maybe they're just making assumptions, like they'll just spin it so quick and be like, well, you make assumptions too. It's like, okay, and then it's like, why am I trying to change anyone? Why am I trying to get anyone to think of anything any differently? Like, am I just trying to validate myself? Am I just trying to validate my own perspective? Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Like anytime there's that desire, because I want to feel better about what I'm doing. And oh man. And like, if that's always the case, then it's not even like explain, ah, you can just talk to someone about yourself, about and not like in the sense of like talking about yourself all the time, but like your own experience and your own things that you're going through. And this actually reminds me, because I did the comedy thing last night and had some awesome conversations leading up to it. Like, talked to this dude who was like, we got into all different sorts of things about how we perceive ourselves and look at ourselves and, judge ourselves and blah, 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 blah. But we were kind of talking about how that you can't convince anyone else of anything necessarily, but even changing something in yourself can cause a rift between someone else, because a lot of people make things about themselves or assume things about themselves. And so I brought up the example of, if you're someone who, hangs out with a lot of people, or you're like a weightlifter, for example, and a lot of your friends are weightlifters, and then you stop lifting weights and they're like, why'd you stop working out? And you explain to them why. It's like, well, I realized that I was doing it to feel better about myself and to look a certain way for everyone else. And like, I kind of thought I was doing it for me, but like realized that I wasn't. And immediately, like, those people are going to be forced to look at themselves and the reasons that they're doing things. And if they don't want to do that, if they don't want to admit that, like, oh, I have some of those reasons too, I do that as well. If they don't want to look at that, then they're just going to point at you. And then as maybe your muscles get a little smaller, they're going to like make fun of you for being scrawny. They're going to have to, if they're not willing to look at themselves, but they're most likely, majority of the cases that people do things are for similar reasons. So if you stop doing them because you're willing to be self-honest, then, and someone else doesn't want to, you don't even have to tell them anything. You don't even have to express to them that like they might be doing that. Just being honest with yourself puts you at odds. And that's fascinating. Like, that's really, really interesting. And I've been noticing that more as I'm more self-honest and being willing to just, yeah, be more honest with myself about stuff. Like, it goes at odds with anyone who's using the same sort of thing to feel better about themselves. And it's gonna put them in a spot where either they have to look at themselves or they have to judge in a sense, or come up with some other reason, another cognitive dissonance, because they don't want to look at themselves, or believing a certain belief because they're afraid. And like, most people don't want to admit that they're afraid. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're going to have to judge by design. It's almost like you're forced to, in a sense, if you're not willing to look at yourself, which is just wild.
Agreed. Agreed. I want to throw out another announcement because we've had a bunch of people join the live stream since last we said this. We're holding a marathon today. We're trying to fundraise for a Dualistic Unity mini retreat ticket for somebody within the community that can't make it, hasn't been able to get the money together, just doesn't have the means. We've got a few people in mind, but we're not going to make any announcements as yet. The point is, if you would like to help, please do so by going to that link. Alternatively, you can also go to dualisticunity.com/donate, and that will bring you directly to the GoFundMe page where you can make your donation. We really appreciate it. Of course, at the moment, it is a brand new GoFundMe page. So the first person to drop that donation is going to be, in my mind, fucking an epic god. Honestly, just get the ball rolling, and we really appreciate it. And at some point when that person is at that retreat, that ripple that you made a difference. And we really appreciate it, and I know they will. These retreats, they mean a lot to a lot of people, and it's not something that Andrew and I can ever take credit for. It really is all the people that come to the retreat. So we really are doing all of this just for the sake of having that place, of having the facility to actually have these times together, having the weed, having the mushrooms, having the food, having the location, really being able to go for walks in nature. Specifically, we're raising money this time for the California mini retreat. So that one's going to be on Big Bear Lake. It's gorgeous. So if you can help out, it's very much appreciated. And if you can't help out monetarily, no problem. That's just fine. Just share the link. If you can share the link, or shit, if you can just join us this afternoon for the marathon, the more that we get our numbers up, the more chance we have of bringing more exposure to this, as well as the podcast, as well as the retreats, as well as the community, as well as everything we're fucking doing, and the discussion. So if you can't donate, even if you can't donate, come to the marathon, hang out with us as long as possible. We're going to see how weird this fucking gets, because I have no doubt that at some point we're just going to be eating while we talk, that we're just going to be shooting the shit. Hell, we might start doing some live karaoke.
It's all on the table, dude. It's got to be. I mean, we're starting at 3 p.m. and like, we'll see. Yeah, right. Just we get into anything. Like, I could go, maybe I'll go out on the street for a little bit and like just record from a hotspot, just on a street corner. Actually, fuck, I didn't even think that. There we go. There's another idea. Go
I'll
to
be
a
taking
park.
us for a walk at some point. I'm going to go smoke a joint, right? So, I mean,
Oh,
we're going to go for a walk, and we're on Instagram, so they don't give a fuck. Like,
yeah.
as long as I'm not like on the screen, they'll be okay with it, right? But yeah, no, this is going to be a fun day.
Oh, I'm now all right. It's decided. I'm setting up. I'm gonna prop a chair up in a random spot and just hotspot and just set up like this. And I guess my microphone's like pretty solid, so it should wean out a lot of the noise. But yeah, maybe before it gets too dark. Yeah, maybe in the morning. Who knows? I don't know. And I also have no idea. Like, I have no idea how long it's gonna go because it's
No, we don't.
1790. So like, if we had 179 people donate $10, that would be said. That seems reasonable.
Reasonable. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
very reasonable. And like, who knows how long that'll take? But yeah, it's all on the table. We may start learning some new things. I may find actually I have my guitar. I still have to get that from my friend's apartment. Maybe I'll get that and just like strum a little bit. Who knows? And Ray can sing, and we can have some campfire songs. It's yeah, it's all on the table. It'll be kind of actually it'll be a good example of like what the retreats are kind of like, because it is a marathon of just hanging out, and then we sleep for a bit and then get up and just do the same thing over and over.
Might even
And
play a game of online chess later.
yes, dude, I say have to, but like there's so many things, that are just like fun stuff to do. And because I'm not trying to get somewhere anymore, I'm not trying to become anything. I'm not worried. Like the comedy thing last night was like such a fun and interesting experience because like I didn't think about myself almost the whole time. And like didn't prepare. Like, I didn't prep I went to an open mic con like, I don't even know. I think I just jumped into a different fucking reality in a sense, because like, I can't even fathom the thought of showing up, not having prepared, telling a joke, like, all of it. Lots of stories, just and being high, and I was baked. Like, I smoked a decent amount beforehand. Like, the thought of doing all those things is crazy. But so anyway, the chess, yeah, that's another thing. It's like, why not? That's a cool thing. And when you're not measuring yourself, when you're not, because like a couple of people asked me, I was talking to a few people about it, and they're like, how'd it go? It's like, I don't know. It went like it was fun. Like, what do you mean, how'd it go? Like, I don't have to, it's not like well, poorly. I don't know. A couple people laughed at one of the things. I was like just kind of expressing how I was feeling for the most part. And it was like I didn't really have that many thoughts about it. But it was cool because it was like it happened and then it was done. And it's like life can be like that. Like every experience can be like that. We don't have to set bars for ourselves. We don't have to measure. We don't have to wonder after every fucking thing that we do, how'd that go? How'd that go? How'd that go? Oh, and fuck yeah, Amanda. $20. Appreciate you. So now
40.
only
Shout
oh,
out to Kanan too.
Kanan.
So
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. We got
Woo!
the ball fucking rolling. That's great. Really, really appreciate it. I gotta say, the message that you sent me yesterday after your open mic night fucking made me cackle. Not the video message, the text message. And it was specifically, I don't feel really different. Gonna have to think about that. And that just fucking made me cackle. It's like, yeah, because you're not. Like nothing's changed. You just did something else. You're still you. That's the funniest part. It's like all of a sudden now you can do anything. None of it really adds to you. So there's less and less anxiety, right? Because if it doesn't add to you, it doesn't take away from you either. So that's it. Now it's just accumulating information. That's what your life is, jumping into experiences and accumulating context. And the more context you accumulate, the more your intelligence has to play with. But if it doesn't mean anything about you, then your intelligence is just chewing on everything. Everything, instead of, again, funneling it down to the idea of you that makes it palatable and easy to digest to your ego and your fears. And that's it. Once that's gone, then it's just fucking sheer information all the time. So I find it fucking fascinating. Like the brain takes in what, like 2 billion bits of information all the time, all the time. But we focus on like, I think it's like 4,000 bits of information. Like that's how much our focus fucking limits it down. Why is that? Because of ourselves. It's because we're self-absorbed. We know exactly where that focus is being drained. We know exactly what we think about throughout most of the fucking day.
Oh my gosh, it's the most limiting thing. And like, you think about the movie Lucy, the 10% of your brain, and then it expands, expands, expands for her. And then, the ending, I won't give it away on here, but watch that movie. It's really cool. And it's very reflective of like, I think how much you're thinking about yourself and how much capacity there is to just to fucking do stuff. And what is, we think of human potential in terms of like fucking accomplishments, dude, and like what we can achieve and what we can do and how good we can get at stuff instead of just what is possible, like beyond even what we could fathom. And it's so funny how much I thought, like, part of me did kind of think I'd feel different after doing that, because like even just like the public speaking side of it, the comedy side of it, like all of it was, those have been in there for me for years, dude. Years of like kind of going back and forth leading up to it. It was kind of an exciting experience, even just the build up to it, like knowing that, because as soon as I mentioned it on our Patreon call, I was like, now it's set in stone. Now I can't go back. Because until then, I was like, yeah, maybe, you never know. There's don't have to, and I don't have to. But as soon as I said it, I was like, all right, that's locked in. And then there was a couple hours beforehand that I was doing stuff, but there was sort of that background build. And I remember when I was younger, like the anticipation for something being so jarring, and like I would get so nervous leading up to situation, and even just the realization, this realization helped me a lot, that they're like, there's nothing wrong with being nervous. Like that's cool too. That helped a lot when I was younger. When that hit me, it like settled things very quickly, and then I could jump into things. But like, even the thought of going into something like that and putting myself out there and just holding a microphone, like part of me was like, am I even going to be able to hold it without my hands like shaking a bunch and moving? And then I didn't feel that different than I do right now as I'm talking. Like, it didn't feel that different, but it was a thing that I kind of had that was like, is just a totally different experience. And now my entire, like, I'm sure there's like fucking neurons in my brain. The thought of like an event or a public speaking thing, like, I don't feel as concerned or worried about that anymore. And again, it's not about me even. It's just like, that was a thing that I had memories of certain situations that went certain ways and meant something when I thought everything meant something about me. And now even just that playing out and it not has shifted something. Like I don't feel that different, but at the same time, there isn't as much like holding me back from other potential situations so much anymore. But it was funny, and I knew you'd find that message funny, because part of me did think like I'd feel a lot different, or like my experience would shift, and like I would feel better in certain ways, and like, same sort of shit comes up, like still having some even conversations after, where like going back and forth with someone, and there was still like, the thought of me would pop in and kind of get in the way a little bit. Like, part of me kind of thought that those situations wouldn't be as much the case, because like I had this fear, and like I just jumped into something new, and it's like, no, it's just jumping into something new. And it did shift me, I'm sure, but like it also didn't at all. Like, I'm still just me. Like, I'm not becoming something. I'm not this thing that's like just overcoming fears, overcoming this fear. Like, that was something that I thought was like overcoming a fear is like gonna make me different. And so now it hit me that like there's not even anything to do necessarily that's gonna do it. And that was like super helpful in a sense, how much it hit me that like, oh, so I have certain fears and concerns. It's like doing them just to like be like, I can do that, but not to not to achieve something, like that habitual fucking nature of like, oh, it's gonna do something now. And now it's like all this stuff. It's like, no, the nerves will still come up from time to time. The discomfort still comes up for sure. But I think there is something to be said for feeling all those nerves, because that was probably more nervous than I've been about something in a while, and just feeling all of that was like a cool experience. Like, it was different, and then jumping in and doing it, like, oh, okay, fuck me, that wasn't so bad. But like, that was something I kind of assumed that I would never do in my life, and now that I have it, like, it set a different sort of, I don't know, bar, like that discomfort bar that mine has been like so fucking low, dude, throughout my life. And that, that is a huge thing, I think, with just being uncomfortable is you can handle more and more just from knowing that you can, just from doing it. And that then shifts your experience, not making you more by any means, but just opens up. It's like the prison cell gets a little wider, every time you do it, there's more to explore.
Yeah, because if it made you more, it would make you less. And that's really the thing. It's so interesting, like there were so many years where I envisioned the ripples and how the world could start to have this discussion. There were so many years where, I envisioned a place in my life where I would be doing the things that I liked, and I would feel like I was in line with reality, and I was talking to people and, traveling to cool places and having dope conversations with people who were having fucking epic insights that were changing their lives. And these were all things that I wanted. And if I got them when I wanted them, I would not have appreciated them. I would have made it about me. And so I find myself at this place where I go to a retreat in a dope location with amazing people, including the partner that I work with, right? My life is incredible. And yet none of it means anything about me. Isn't it so funny that I have so many things that at one point I would have said were a dream? And where I'm at right now, it doesn't mean a thing about me. You could take it all away and I'd still be just as fine. That's the incredible part to me, is that I can go to a retreat and not feel any more important for helping that retreat come to be, not feel any more enlightened or wise or knowledgeable just because people listen to our podcast. That is a fucking wonderful place to be, because then I have nothing to live up to. There's nothing for me to stand on. And why would I want that? Why would I want something to stand on where now I have to be afraid of being torn down? Right? So it really is, as much as clarity is unsatisfying to the ego, it is deeply enriching. It's deeply fulfilling, because everything you do is for its own sake, rather than for the sake of trying to make you more while also making you less.
Whew, we gotta clip that bit there for sure. Oh my god. Like, it's such a I cannot begin to express how different of an experience it is. It's almost like, is this happening right now? Am I actually going into situations not thinking that it means something about me, not setting a bar, not having an expectation, not thinking, and it goes hand in hand with all of it. Anxiety, control, thinking because like, if you want to be in control, there's something that's being controlled and something that's in control, and there's something that's controllable, and all of it, as if like reality is something that is controllable. And all, like, taking all of those, the bits of information, the 2 billion bits of information or whatever it is that our brains taken in, we only see a little bit. Like, to assume to assume that we have control over all of that. No wonder we're anxious as fuck all the time, because we're trying to take in all of this information and control all of it and keep it in order and keep it in mind and maintain this idea of how things are going and how I'm doing, while trying to take in all of that information. No wonder it's so fucking limited all the time. And to go into a situation like, I can't even start to express. I mean, I can. I'm glad, dude. I'm glad we got this 3 p.m. fucking marathon live stream. And anyone on Instagram, we're doing the marathon live stream to help raise money for a retreat ticket for our upcoming retreat. It's going to be a fucking blast, because I can't even begin to express how different it feels. Like, I'm just, and this week, I mean, I fucking like felt like I fucking word vomited all over social media and a lot of videos this week. But it was like, it was what was there. And as much as I've had lots of time in the last couple of days where I was like, I wish I didn't do that, a part of me is like, it happened, and it's been the most jarring and peaceful and freeing sort of feeling in so many ways, because I feel like for the first time, I'm not going into situations with that bar, with that sense of like, of me. of what it means about me, of what it means about how I'm doing. And don't get me wrong, there's still certainly remnants, and it comes back of guns ablazing, how I'm doing, and it just gets in the way. But I notice how much it's just like getting in the way. It's that sort of fog, that thing that like overcomes me as soon as I'm thinking that like, oh, or trying to think, how is this going? Like, oh, am I doing this the right way? Am I doing this the wrong way? Oh, I got to do this a little bit differently. It's like, based on what? And I'll try and grab for that, and there isn't so much there. There isn't anything there. And so, like, it's just like not a carrot and not a stick. But as I've said before, like, I feel like the carrots, they go hand in hand, but like for me, it seems like the carrot's been gone for a bit, but there's still this stick that I'm running from. But I guess they go hand in hand, and I guess
Well,
that's
what's worse is your carrot has just become a lack of stick.
shit. Oh God, we can even turn that into a fucking merry-go-round. Oh, we don't get shit. We don't get any. It's like, how much have I let go of the stick? How much have I let go of the carrot? Oh God damn it. Me. How free am I right now? Just how free. Oh God damn, dude. Oh, it's a beautifully insane thing. It's insane.
Now you know why I come across as a fucking goof. Like, I come across as just fucking nuts. And the reason is because, frankly, thoughts are. Thoughts are nuts. Like, the belief that a thought is ever going to reflect reality is crazy. Absolute fucking Looney Tunes. And so every time I end up getting caught in this idea, like, if I just think about this enough, it'll be something else. It's just ridiculous. Like, it's so exhausting for no good reason, right? Whereas you don't know, like, how much time, just anyone listening right now, let's just ballpark it. How much time in your life up until now do you think you've spent thinking about shit that never happened, worrying about things happening that never did? Could you even possibly be so honest with yourself as to recognize how much fucking time you've wasted? And that's it. Like, we wake up in the morning, we start worrying about how we judge ourselves. We go through the day, we worry about how people judge us. We get into the evening, we start worrying about where we're going to be fucking 40 years from now. Like, we spend a lot of fucking time thinking about the fiction that will never be a reality. And we do it only because the alternative would be to be here, right? Where we have no control except for what is. We have to accept what we have. Accept what we have. And that insight alone is so very hard. And it's one of the biggest distinctions that changed in my life. Was all of a sudden it went from thinking about what I didn't have that would make my life more, to what I did have that I could do with, or what I could do with it. It changed entirely. All of a sudden, it wasn't, I need this, I don't have that. Oh, they have this. And if somebody else was here, they would do this. It wasn't any of that. It's, what do I have? What can I do? And so all of a sudden, you are learning how to use shit in your life in whatever way you want. You're like, oh, well, this serves this function, but it would also make a great hat stand, because you're problem solving for yourself. You're not like, right, but somebody might judge that. Why would you use that as a hat stand? Because I used it as a fucking hat stand. Immediately. It's like, I'm just not willing to fucking think about that. I've said this before, in my previous relationship. My ex-wife used to get into the habit, she would thrift shop, or she would go and look for all the discounts at the store. And so she would be like, oh, it's on sale, that's on sale, and that's on sale. And then she'd come home and she'd look over the receipt, and she'd realize, oh fuck, they ran one or maybe even two things through at the regular price, ringing in an extra $4 or something. To which she would go like, fuck, now I gotta go all the way up there and fucking get the $4. And my response would be, I'll give you $4 just to fucking drop it. Like, I'll give you $4 for this problem to end now. right now, because what are you trading? Is it worth an hour, 2 hours of your time for $4? And it's not even about the money. It's the worst thing. It's not even about the money. It's about how somehow you got fucking betrayed. You got gypped. You got taken advantage of. Blah, 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 blah. Instead of, you'll be okay. You'll make it work. Right? But it's just, no, I'm going to dwell on it. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to hold on to it. I'm going to do all this. And it's like, wow, you just pissed away like fucking 6 hours of your day. Easy. Easy. I mean, you can sit there and watch a movie and miss the movie. You are so lost in your shit. Think about that. Okay? You will be in a movie watching it happen. There's dialogue happening. There's a fucking scene being acted out. And you're thinking about the conversation you had with Janice earlier today. Why? Because you think it's going to do something. Because you think, if I think about this enough, I'm going to come to some resolution and history's going to fucking change. You're just trying to find a way to change how you feel about what happened with Janice. And it's really important to remember that. You're dwelling on it because it made you feel lower. It made you feel less. And it made you feel less and lower because of something that you're holding on to about yourself. So instead of deal with what you're holding on to, you're going to focus on Janice and try and tear her down or find some perception that raises you up so you can go back to bed tonight. None of it's necessary. You could have just went, well, it happened, and watched the fucking movie.
Oh my God, the amount of time that we spend going back and forth thinking about different things that we feel certain ways about, and then we try and think about it differently so we feel differently about it instead of just shutting the fuck up and like living life. And we're missing life the whole time. Like we're missing life trying to make up for past things or holding on to past things that are just in our head, like just in our mind. Like, my God, and the ways to like mitigate. And if it's like everything we do just to feel better about certain situations, just to feel better about certain things that are going on. And like the thought of something happening like that, and or even like getting mischarged about a thing, like it costs $2 extra, or they priced it wrong, or whatever. Like how much, and shout out first 2 donations. If anyone saw the QR code there.
Seven donations.
Holy shit. Holy shit. Fuck yeah. All right. Imagine we just have like the marathon's like 2 hours and we're like, should we raise money for
Let's go for another ticket.
Another
Yeah.
ticket? Yeah. Fuck yeah. Oh man, this is gonna be fun. But like, oh my God, the amount of time we'll spend, even if it's like, yeah, like $4, 5, even like $100 or something, like, and the more we delve into that, then it becomes this sort of thing. And like, no, it's got to be something that's figured out. I need a conclusion to this. I need to solve this. I need to, and then it's like, I need to solve myself. I need to figure out myself, instead of you just being a tool that you can use to have experience. When things don't mean something about you, about the idea of you, then even your body becomes this like tool, this functional thing that allows you to experience the fullness of life, of reality. And it doesn't, when things don't mean anything about you so much, it's like so much of the world is opened up to you, like so much more of it. And again, it's like it's all on spectrums of things, but there is, I feel like, as much as it is a spectrum, it's like you can still absolutely, I'm not saying I'm gonna get caught up in myself all the time. I'm sure. I'm not sure. But it happens. You go back and forth. And like, but it's how much weight it's given. And there are, I don't know, like differences and I guess it's just being willing to be self-honest in a lot of ways. And then you start to shift more and more. And there is a spectrum of like, say you take yourself super seriously, and there's a spectrum of how much things mean about you. And like, it's still, doesn't mean something about me, does it not? But there's like the spectrum shifts along the spectrum almost. And as you experience more things that don't mean as much about you, and even previous thing, like I was saying with the open mic thing, like previous things, similar experiences that have stuck with me for years, some things like 10, 15 years that when it meant something about me, continue to mean something about me. And now I have a different perspective on those things because I experienced something similar that didn't mean so much about me. And like, I haven't really even had that many thoughts about it since it happened. It was like, it was something that happened and that's it. Like, that's all it is. And everything can be just something that happens. But so much like we think, I don't know. It's like it can be either like a constant sort of judgment of how things are going or how you're doing with things. Cause even moment to moment, like as things in general mean something about you, like moment to moment right now, I could assume that, oh, is what I'm saying making sense? And like it can dig into our experience here and now, but when it's not there so much, like it opens up doors to just express and there isn't so much weight anymore. And your point about being like, seeming crazy in a lot of ways, because, you know, my mind's always been crazy. Like it's crazy in there and I try and control it. I try and like subdue it, suppress it. Like, oh, can't sound like this, can't sound like that. Like I put in one of the poems I wrote last week, like, didn't want you to think I was insane. And like, what does that even mean? Like, what are we trying to be sane for, towards? Oh gosh. And so yeah, and I don't know, just realizing more and more how much people try and mitigate that sanity. Stay sane. Like according to who? According to what? What does that even mean? According to like the societal general idea of sanity? Like it's an interesting one for sure.
Yeah. Well, you'll notice that I think it was Alan Watts who actually brought this up, that prisons and institutions for the insane are very much the same. It's just you don't fit the common mentality. Get out of sight. Right? Like, it's really it. And that's the whole point. There's almost a threat underneath all that. Like if you don't fit the common mentality, we have a place for you. And it's implied for sure, but it very much is that because again, mob rule, right? And it's only because we don't spend enough time actually being aware of mob rule. Right? This is something that we're actually seeing now in the form of cancel culture. Right? Cancel culture is mob rule. Like it's really important to recognize that. Like a mob didn't reflect the beliefs of the entire town. The mob was just the vocal minority with enough people to make it look like it reflected the rest of town. And that's what's happening with cancel culture. Is you have a very small vocal fucking mob of pissed off people. And then people go, "Oh my god, such and such is being canceled." No, it's just a small percentage of really vocal fucking people that make it have the appearance that there are more people. Which is why every single person who's been canceled hasn't. At the end of the day, it's a short little blip. It's like a politician's fucking scandal. It lasts a month and it's gone. It lasts a month and then it's gone. And politicians know that. And comedians and actors are starting to know that too. They're starting to figure that out about this whole cancel phenomenon. I just got to lay low long enough. And that's pretty much it. And that's how little force it has. But make no mistake, it's mob rule. Like we are very much validating the idea that groupthink is fucking positive. We should reinforce it. Ah, person's canceled. Don't watch them. It's like, why are they canceled? And by who? And why are they so fucking sensitive?
Amen. And now we see more, and like it's cool how much the symbolism of fucking reality and everything is being reflected in different ways. Cause like we're seeing more and more people do their own thing. They're not relying upon the big institutions like a comedian putting out a special, like they'll put out their own special. And so people interested, it's like you can't cancel that. Like people are uncancelable in a lot of ways. There's larger platforms that do hold some power, but we're seeing more and more individualistic platforms that don't have quite so many rules. Even like podcasts, like we're able to, advertise for cannabis companies that and psychedelics. Yeah, and the big fucking herb there. I love that shirt. Like we're able to do that, but like if we were solely on specific platforms, we wouldn't be able to so much. And so we're seeing so many more ways to be individualistic in a sense. Like you don't have to rely upon the big platforms anymore. And you even think about, Hollywood 50 years ago. It's like there's a lot of fucked up shit that went on there because it was the only place that you could do something. But now with social media is like a variation of that that's more individualistic. People are able to make their own movies. Like anyone can make their own movie. And if it's good enough, people are going to watch it. And you can put it on certain platforms. Even there's like larger platforms that have differing views. It's not so much like a one siloed view. So like someone who maybe got canceled on certain platforms then can just go to another platform, and those interested can check that out, and those semi interested and intrigued can also check that out. So it's getting harder and harder to cancel people as we're able to make, and I'm looking for like a word here, just like individualistic, not authentic, but whatever, something like that, like decisions on your own for yourself. And it isn't so much about fitting this common sort of general societal narrative. And like, I don't know what the fuck's going to go on in the US over the next couple of years, but we are way too fucking big and there's way too much variation. But like, we're still trying to have like a one sort of singular perspective almost in a lot of ways, but it's just ain't working anymore. And so it's going to be, yeah, I don't know how that's going to play out, but we're seeing more and more. It's like, it's hard to cancel people now. And it's kind of like laughable that people try, because people are making their own decisions for themselves.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't even know how the hell this is all going to play out over the next couple of years. I do know that it's not going to be anything like anybody expects. It's so funny because we really want to do something cut and dry, and so even something like it's World War III. That's the end. It's just a giant fucking war. Fact is that our system has no idea how to deal with our changing mentality, and our system has no idea how to deal with the amount of information that is being fucking transmitted and received and processed by all of humanity at the pace that it's being processed by humanity right now. It's like I was saying to you the other day. You have a larger audience on an Instagram live than some of the performances that Mozart would have had. Right? Like you think about that. You think about the amount of ripples that people have just in being on social media, people have just in being online, people have in being able to create an email campaign and being able to go on Reddit and drop a fucking comment that 10 people, a dozen people might read. This is not something that we've seen in our history. It wasn't that long ago. It was 1,000 years ago that books were written by hand. Having a small library made you a very educated and probably wealthy person. So writing something would never get seen. This is why we have museums, to preserve some of the shit that was done by people, because otherwise you would have never seen it. It would have been destroyed. A handful of people would have seen it, and that would have been the end of it. And so that's why it's so important to recognize, like right now, the rate of change is fucking incredible. And it's coming to a point where the system's just going to panic. The system is going to panic, but it's going to panic right at a time where our own technology, if we have the clarity to use it, facilitates a solution to that system. It facilitates our ability to actually create an alternative to that system. We have that ability right now. Cryptocurrency shows that. The ability for real-time voting shows that. There's a lot of technologies that show we have the ability to do better than this right now. But we're so caught up in a previous mentality. We're so caught up in egotism that we're terrified to work together. And that has gotten to the point now where it's used against us. Politicians will focus on your socioeconomic status, your color, your neighborhood, your political leaning, your religion. Why do you think they pound on those things? Why do you think they cater to a certain niche? It's because there's profit in creating conflict, because there is a benefit to be had in pitting one group of people against another group of people. And as long as that's the case, we are never going to work together. And it's exactly why the system maintains power. And so the only solution to that is to figure out why we can't work together. And I know why we can't work together, because we're self-absorbed, because we're afraid, because we're afraid. And what are we afraid of? The very world that we're perpetuating through our need for control. And so the system is going to come along, or rather, the system is going to come apart at the seams, because the thing that drives it, the thing that actually gives it that energy, is losing its momentum. And that was our belief in it.
Whew, fuck, dude. Like, and I feel like we're coming closer and closer to realizing that like things don't mean so much about us. Like it's right in our face all the time. Like that inability to even measure ourself or be sure of things or even realize like even just having a conversation like yesterday at the comedy thing beforehand, like the host ended up being super late, so we were all just like chatting for a while. And even just the realization, like this is another one that people use cognitive dissonance to surpass, but like that you don't know how you don't know how anyone else sees you. Like you can't know. You know your idea of yourself and the world. You don't know how anyone else looks at you or perceives you. And like everyone's doing it differently. And you have no idea what that is. And so all these ways we're trying to 11 donations. Let's fucking go. All right. Imagine if we get like, a good chunk done today. And meanwhile, before this, I was like, are we still doing the live? Because I know we're marathon.
We
It's
are
like,
almost at $400.
holy shit, dude. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't have an expectation, but that's going faster than my lack of expectation.
Man, if we can raise enough for like 2, 3 tickets, this would be great. Wouldn't that be just amazing? Because again, I have a few people in mind.
For sure. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, this could be fun. And even just like where this conversation is going here, like this is this is gonna be a fun little afternoon we got here. And who knows what's gonna happen because we're just talking about shit right now. Like we're gonna start doing stuff here too. Like I said, I may end up on a street corner in Manhattan. We'll see. Cause why the
Yeah,
fuck
I
not?
might take us all for a walk through Bowen Park. Why the fuck not?
Fuck yeah. Oh, man. And, I don't remember exactly what I was talking about before, something about ideas, not knowing yeah, like, the not knowing, like, we're starting to realize more and more that, like, you create an idea about yourself. Oh, I don't need that alarm anymore. That was before. That was when I thought we were just doing, later. I don't know why I thought that, but, the, just the ideas I have of myself, like, I am getting a good look at how much we just use that to feel better. And like everything we do, the world that we've created to feel better about ourselves, to mitigate this feeling of lack, this sense of lack that we don't want to look in the face at. We don't want to look at like, oh, I feel lack. And so I'm trying to do all of these things to feel better about myself relative to everyone else. But it's just entirely within your own little fucking pod, your own little thing, and there's no guarantee one way or the other of what it means. It's just you trying to feel better about yourself. You're thinking about yourself a little bit differently. You do something to feel like you're a little bit more than you are. And when you get a good look at that not being possible, there being no guarantee of anything outside of your own perception, you start to feel kind of silly. You start to feel really, really fucking silly about the way that you continue to measure yourself against the world. Because it's just you're in your own little pod thinking all these things and like getting a good look at that, it's not super comfortable because you start to realize, oh my God, I've been living my whole life doing that thing. But then it's like the whole world opens up to you, so you don't really give a fuck about like how long you've been doing it, because you're like, well, I'm not doing it right now, and that's cool, and this is plenty, more than enough for me to be cool with and to fucking live life. It's different. It's different when you're not measuring yourself constantly, because it gets more, it's like it gets more and more constant. It gets more and more until it's like, okay, this doesn't work anymore. And it is for yourself and it is for the world at the same time. And I think we're starting to realize, and even just with, mental health crisis, and I don't mean to put that in quotes as if that's not, but like everything that's going on right now with that and how much it's like, blowing up and like getting more and more of a thing that people are dealing with, and then we keep on trying to patch on band-aids like, oh, just subdue the feelings, just don't feel them as much, and then just live the rest of your life in this subdued sort of numb state instead of feeling everything or recognizing deep down that there's nothing inherently wrong with you, that it's just a response to a system trying to be sure of things, trying to be convinced that there is a right way. One of these things got to be a right way. Just pick a good religion, pick a good political party, pick the right person, vote for the right person, do all these things. And then, then it'll be better. And this will make things better. But it couldn't possibly be me looking at myself, being self-honest with myself. Couldn't possibly be that. It's got to be someone else's problem, someone else's issue. Couldn't be me. I'm just little me. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Continuing to try to feel better about ourselves. And maybe that ain't it. Maybe it's not about feeling better about yourself at all. Maybe it's letting go of that idea that there's anything to feel better relative to, that there is a bar, that there is some guarantee of a point where you're going to feel good forever. Like you can't escape yourself. You can try, but it's still there. Oh, wait.
It's the funniest part, right? And it's just stop tearing yourself down and you won't need to build yourself up. That's really it. If you weren't convinced you're not enough, you wouldn't need to be more. If you weren't comparing yourself to an assumption of someone else, you wouldn't be trying desperately to keep up to that assumption. That's the whole point, is that we do it to ourselves. We do it to ourselves. And again, it's not through any fault of our own. That's in fact where we get stuck, isn't it? Where all of a sudden we're like, shit, I'm making my life hard. I must be an idiot. It's like, you just did it again. Right? But that's it. It's being able to look at the thing and just learn from it. And we've done that our entire life. We have done our entire life by trying something and not succeeding. And then trying again and probably not succeeding until eventually we knew how to do it. Everything in our life, like even right now, like if somebody has a pen, grab your pen, write your name. That was easy. You have any idea how long that fucking took you to learn? Like we're talking years, hours of practice to write your fucking name. And yet, for some reason, the idea of not doing something perfectly first time terrifies us, scares the living shit out of us. And that is why we avoid the very recognitions that would help us grow, because they imply that we were wrong, because they imply that we were less. And that's never been the case. It's just this assumption that we have no option but to fall into so long as we're committed to the idea of ourselves holding any value whatsoever. Because if you can have a fiction of yourself that indicates your value, that value can be raised or lowered. The recognition that there is no fiction of yourself that reflects truth at all is the recognition that your value is immeasurable. It isn't raised or lowered. It is simply expressed or not.
And as soon as you think that it is something else, as soon as you think it's on that fucking spectrum of like, how am I doing? You're immediately at odds with everything, everyone. You could possibly be worried about everything, and everything being uncertain. It's like you get to that point where, leaving the house versus staying in the house. It's like leaving the house is more uncertain than staying in the house. So I'm gonna stay in the house because I feel like I can control that. But even then, it's like now you're a person who just stays in your house all the time. So you can certainly come up with plenty of ways to judge yourself for that. And how much like growing up and just learning new things all the time, that childlike mentality. And shout out to the QR code. Go help raise some money for the retreat ticket. We're going to be marathoning starting at 3 p.m. Eastern time today. Going as long as it takes to get that retreat ticket figured out, and maybe more. We're just going to keep going and keep doing stuff and shooting the shit and doing, I don't know, crazy things. We'll see. Should be fun. But yeah, like the childlike sort of mentality of just all it is not fucking being enthralled in yourself, being self-absorbed. Like the self-absorption builds over time in a sense out of necessity, like to understand that there is a perception of division between you and others and the things that you feel or go through. But then there's this thought that like the thought that you're the only one feeling things, like that's not a guarantee that you're the only one feeling the things that you're feeling. There is nothing saying that that is the case, but it kind of goes hand in hand with thinking of myself as separate. So who's to say that you're not feeling everything all the time when you are willing to realize that even the recognition that nothing in reality is disconnected, like none of the molecules, whatever, how much you want to break it down, like it's not disconnected at all. So if we are willing to look at that, then it does make sense that you are feeling everything. But that's another cognitive dissonance, like, okay, whatever, I'm still me, blah 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 blah. It's like, sure, but like it's not what you're thinking about. And there's nothing saying that there's an actual divide between anything or anyone. But when there isn't so much of a guarantee of how you're doing, then it isn't so scary to jump in to things, to try new things, to recognize that there is a process to everything that you learn. Like you said, writing your name took a long ass time. You probably it probably was really, really hard to read that thing early on. Like it barely even was anything. It's like, are you drawing a picture or are you writing words? And over time, we forget. And so then it gets to a point where like, if everything does mean something about me, trying something for the first time is like the scariest fucking thing in the world, because of course you're not going to do great. It's like flipping a coin and like a 20-sided coin and one of the sides is doing well on it. It's like good luck, beginner's luck. Maybe if you're not thinking about yourself so much or don't have expectations of yourself so much, but then the expectations build even, but we'll have expectations before we even do something. And so it keeps us far from jumping in. It's brutal. It's brutal. And then the fear's still there. You can avoid doing it, but the fear is still going to be there under the surface all the time. And you just do something else, something a little more comfortable to, feel like it's not there. It's still there. You can't escape it.
No. Just want to give a quick shout out. We are $7.50 away from being a quarter of the way to our goal in the first hour and a half, everyone. So thank you so much for your help. If you'd like to continue to donate, you can do so at the QR code or dualisticunity.com/donate. Before we wrap up today, I want to bring something up because this is something I've noticed has happened a few times in the Discord, especially when I have to go in and address somebody who is being self-absorbed, frankly. They will react in a way or they will act in a way that shows very clearly where they're coming from. There's an element of desperation. There's an element of attention seeking. There's an element of manipulation. There's an element of self absorption. And you know this because they get very frustrated when they don't get their way. They get very frustrated when they're not responded to. They get very frustrated if people don't want to tolerate their shit. They get very frustrated. And that's because of that desperation and that need. And as much as we talk about assumptions, and we talk about the danger of assumptions all the time. When somebody is acting that clearly from a state of lack, when somebody is acting that clearly from a state of insecurity, when somebody is acting that clearly from a state of need, and you address it, and because they're familiar with the conversation a little bit, they're like, oh, but Isn't that an assumption? Understand the defense mechanism that's happening there. Like, you think you're just being clever, but really what you're doing is just catering to your cognitive dissonance. You want it to be an assumption because the alternative is that it's really quite obvious to everyone exactly where you're coming from, except you. You don't want to look at it. And so what you'll do is, it's an assumption. It's an assumption. Like, that's a one trick thing that you can use for everything. And while assumptions are something you should watch out for, it is also really important to recognize that sometimes things are just fucking clear. Like, if you're ravenous for food, it's because you're hungry. If you're ravenous for attention, it's because you feel like you're lacking it in yourself. All right. And this is something that's really important to recognize. And I want to drill this home. This is the reason that I'm determined not to be a nice person. I'm not there to make you feel better. I'm not there to tolerate your shit. I'm really not. If you're going to run in circles and make it all about you, I am more than happy to give you the fucking boot. Because you're going to go and figure that shit out somewhere else. Because it's on you. Okay? I'm happy to give you the space and the time. And I generally do a good job. I'll give people months of running around on the Discord. I'll give them days of running around at the retreat. And everybody who's been in one of those situations with me knows exactly what I'm talking about. But that said, I don't need you to like me. I don't need you to perceive me in a certain way. And I certainly don't need you to understand what took me my whole fucking life to understand, which is exactly how manipulative you are, exactly how needy you are, right? So just understand that. It's taken me a long time to get to where I am. I don't give a fuck what you think about me. What I do give a fuck about is what we're doing here. What I do give a fuck about is how important this conversation is. It's not about you making yourself feel better. And if you are here to make yourself feel better and I address that with you and you get all fucking defensive, you better believe I will kick you right the fuck off our server without any hesitation whatsoever, and never once blink an eye thinking that I'm being hypocritical, because I understand you will continue to learn. You will continue to learn from yourself if you so desire. But since you're not showing that, there's no reason for us to tolerate it. There's no reason for us to go through it with you at all, because it doesn't do anything for us. At the very least, what it does teach us is that we don't have to go through it with you. It's on you.
Amen. We are not your daddies, and we're not here and because I'll get this sometimes too, like, oh, well, there's no right way, and like there's no right thing to do. That includes acting however anyone responds to your actions too. And so if you're displaying a certain type of behavior and someone responds to that behavior, it's like there's something to look at there. It's not like it's everyone else's thing. It's like, oh, you must be doing something. And it's like such an easy way to be like, well, no, it couldn't possibly be me.
No. Here's the one I love. But if you would just give me the opportunity to show you my intentions, if you could just meet me in person, it's like your intentions are fucking clear. Your intentions are clear. It's just that you want to be in a position where you're closer to one of us, where you can manipulate, where you can put on a show, where you can try to convince us the same shit you try to convince yourself. Your intentions are clear. And nobody is going to argue with you about it, because frankly, it's your problem. You have all the opportunity in the world to stop making it about you. You have all the opportunity in the world to actually make this about self-honesty and self-reflection, rather than just making it about a need for attention from other people. Right? It's important to recognize that. And I'm going to say this one more time because I know it's really important. If I were to meet you in person, the level of need and desperation would turn me off like that. Anybody who knows me knows how I deal with people who are clingy. Not well. Right? Because I can't do you any good. The best thing I can do is tell you to fuck off. That said, we are going to wrap up here and join back on Patreon. We're going to continue our marathon in a little while. I think we actually cracked the quarter mark. I don't know, but we'll check in 15 minutes. Thank you to everyone who could help us to get this person to a retreat. This is going to be amazing. If we can get to a few people to the retreat, imagine the celebration of how the community came together to make this happen. So thank you, everyone. We're going to sign off here. We'll stop talking, and we will see you on Patreon in 15 minutes, and then the marathon at 3 p.m. Eastern.
And we are at 25%. Fuck yeah. All right. I guess.